Meet Zeke Drager, a child born into the prestigious Drager household, a lineage that directly traces its roots to legendary Dragonslayers. However, his time basking in the family's glory was short-lived. Deemed unfit for their legacy, he was cast aside without hesitation. The Drager sought a formidable swordsman to uphold their name, but Zeke was born with an ability they considered worthless, a cursed healer, a power no one cared about. Determined to defy his fate, Zeke embarked on a relentless journey across continents in search of strength. His travels led him to an ancient relic, a treasure so coveted that even the emperor himself desired it. But fate was cruel. Imperial soldiers, dispatched by the emperor, ambushed him, and the brutal injuries they inflicted were beyond even his healing capabilities. Just when all hope seemed lost, destiny took an unexpected turn. The ancient relic he had seized activated an enigmatic upgrade system, granting him the ability to regress to a younger age, this time, with ancient, untapped powers awakened within him. Thus began the true story of Zeke Drager. His journey led him to the prestigious training ground of the Drager household, the Cradle. But before delving further into his tale, one must understand the family he was born into. The Drager lineage stands as one of the three great transcendent households, their reputation built upon the legendary feats of their ancestor, Khan Drager. 1,000 years ago, this revered hero saved the land by vanquishing the malevolent dragon Bahamut, a feat that cemented the Drager name in history. Over the centuries, every descendant of the Drager bloodline inherited the blessing of Aura, an innate force allowing them to awaken powerful abilities effortlessly, elevating them to unparalleled heights as knights. That is, until Zeke was born. Unlike his predecessors, he lacked the ability to wield Aura, a deviation that turned him into an outcast, an anomaly within his own family. Now, having regressed, Zeke lay on his bed, completely at ease, when an unexpected system notification startled him. His instincts flared as he scanned his surroundings, listening intently for any disturbance. Yet, finding nothing, he dismissed it as a trick of his imagination. But then, more system windows materialized before his eyes. Among them, one held the most astonishing revelation. It declared that Zeke's soul had merged with the will of the Elder Dragon, granting him newfound authority over the system itself. The moment the activation was complete, his vision was bombarded with an array of system windows. The first displayed his overall stats, including his class, skills, and a unique category labeled Draconian Skills, an ability locked behind a threshold of 10 points. However, his current karma points remained at 0. Intrigued, he began experimenting with the system, quickly grasping its mechanics. Yet, amidst all the information, what caught his attention the most was the class skill. The terminology itself was peculiar, as the phrase belonged to the ancient Draconic language, long forgotten in this era. He recalled his master once speaking of it, how, in the ancient world, warriors classified themselves based on their strengths, each mastering specialized techniques known as skills. Since Zeke's designated class was that of a healer, his corresponding skill was, naturally, healing. His master, a formidable woman, had once subjected him to merciless training, pushing him to the brink of death just so he could hone his ability to recover. The excruciating pain she inflicted upon him remained etched in his memory, a testament to the brutal methods she employed to strengthen him. Determined to confirm the system's claim, Zeke activated his powers. The result left him stunned. He was indeed a healer. This revelation was staggering, as in his previous life, he hadn't unlocked his healing abilities until his 20s, after the opening of his ether hall. The fact that he could already wield his abilities meant only one thing: his ether hall had already been unlocked. This revelation was nothing short of a miracle. Not only had he returned to the past with all his memories intact, but he now possessed his hard-earned skills from the future, granting him an overwhelming advantage. As he prepared to explore the system further, eager to uncover more hidden surprises, a sudden knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. A voice called out his name. Quickly, Zeke scrambles to dismiss the system windows, ensuring no one catches a glimpse of them. However, before he can fully compose himself, the impatient visitor barges in without so much as a knock. The man who enters is none other than Decker, Zeke's exclusive servant. His piercing gaze sweeps across the room, his expression cold and scrutinizing. Decker isn't here for pleasantries, his purpose is clear. He has come to check whether his young master is prepared for the event ahead. But to his growing irritation, Zeke appears utterly clueless. The sheer audacity of the boy's forgetfulness makes Decker's blood boil. How could the young master be so indifferent on such an important day? The butler's annoyance is palpable, his intense stare drilling into Zeke, who instinctively begins to tremble. At that moment, a long-forgotten fear resurfaces. Even with the mind of a 32-year-old, Zeke's body still remembers the terror Decker once instilled in him. No matter how much he tries to suppress it, the subconscious fear refuses to fade. But then, something shifts. A system notification silently activates within him, composed mind. Almost instantly, the trembling ceases, and all traces of fear vanish from Zeke's face. His heartbeat slows, his mind clears. The skill ensures that his mental state remains unaffected, allowing him to maintain unwavering composure regardless of the situation. It is an unexpected yet welcome advantage, one that seems to activate on its own. Meanwhile, Decker continues to lecture him, growing more exasperated with each passing second. He repeats himself, hammering in the importance of the event, but Zeke remains quiet. He listens, unmoved, before finally acknowledging the butler's words. Yes, he does remember. It is the evaluation test, Panc Cron. To understand its significance, one must grasp the traditions of the Drager household. Every descendant undergoes a rigorous training system known as the cradle, beginning at the age of 7. Over 5 grueling years, they endure relentless physical and combat training. Each year, their abilities are assessed through a brutal evaluation, the most notorious of which is Panc Cron, a merciless, no-holds-barred competition where combatants are free to fight without rules or restrictions. The matches are usually arranged by the instructors, but under special circumstances, students may challenge their own opponents, if both parties consent. With no regulations to hold them back, injuries are frequent, and on occasion, some students do not survive. Yet, the stakes are too high to withdraw. The results of Panc Cron determine the ranking of students within the academy, influencing their future within the Draker household. This is why, despite the dangers, each participant fights with every ounce of strength they possess. The long-awaited day finally arrives. In the vast amphitheater, students stand in eager anticipation, their expressions a mix of determination and nervous excitement. At the heart of it all stands head instructor Panmark, a towering figure whose very presence demands respect. His gaze sweeps over the assembled students before he announces the beginning of the Panc Cron. A resounding chorus of voices affirms his declaration. Their enthusiasm is evident, and for a moment, even Panmark is intrigued by their unwavering spirits. Then, amidst the crowd, whispers begin to spread. The students have noticed someone unexpected, Zeke Drager. For many, it is laughable. He's back again? After the humiliation he endured last year? The murmurs grow, mocking and ridiculing him, but Zeke remains unfazed. He listens, but their words no longer have power over him. The first duel begins. 2 students step forward, and within mere moments, Aaron, one of the stronger students, delivers a devastating uppercut, knocking his opponent unconscious in a single strike. The crowd erupts in excitement, marveling at the sheer power displayed. Zeke, however, is unimpressed. He recalls how, in his past life, such fights had once terrified him. But now, compared to the horrors he endured before his regression, this was nothing more than a trivial scuffle. As the matches continue, Zeke yawns, uninterested, his mind wandering elsewhere. But among the eager competitors, one particular individual is watching him closely, Leon Conrad. Leon has been waiting for this moment. And then, the moment arrives. Zeke's name is called, signaling the start of his match. His opponent? None other than Leon Conrad. While Zeke rubs his tired eyes, Leon wastes no time. His fist shoots forward in a quick jab, a calculated strike meant to provoke a reaction. And just like that, the memories come rushing back. Zeke remembers it all. The humiliation of the previous year. The shame of kneeling before Leon, begging for forgiveness. The unbearable disgrace that haunted him. But that was the past. Leon Conrad, Zeke knows him well. His fighting style, his underhanded tricks, his pathetic excuse of a family. Zeke has fought him every year, and he is all too familiar with the kind of player Leon is. A dirty one. But this time, things would be different. Zeke is certain that the only reason he's facing Leon in this duel is because Leon has pulled strings behind the scenes to rig the match in his favor. If given a choice, he'd rather have a dog that bites than a cousin like him. In his past life, Zeke never had the chance to meet his 4 siblings of direct bloodline, but he had more than a dozen cousins, most of whom took pleasure in tormenting him. Leon calls out to him once again, and just as before, he seeks to humiliate him, bringing up the miserable defeat Zeke suffered the previous year. He mocks him further, questioning whether that level of disgrace wasn't enough to keep him from ever stepping foot into Panc Cron again. As Leon continues hurling insult after insult, Zeke remains as unbothered as ever, thanks to composed mind. However, while he can tolerate a certain level of provocation, even his patience has its limits. He refuses to allow some insolent insect to slander him repeatedly without consequence. And, of course, his cool indifference only serves to enrage Leon further. This time, the bastard crosses a line. He reaches out and grabs Zeke by the head. A foolish mistake. Before Leon can even realize what's happening, a solid punch lands squarely on his face, sending him flying across the arena. The devastating blow is the result of critical strike, a skill that amplifies the damage inflicted upon an opponent. It carries the risk of being countered if the attack fails, but fortunately for Zeke, the punch landed perfectly, leaving no room for retaliation. Leon crashes onto the ground, writhing in agony as he clutches his face. Zeke, meanwhile, stands unfazed, reflecting on the unintended activation of his ability. His goal was merely to knock Leon out, not to obliterate him. The instructor rushes forward, tending to the injured student while immediately turning on Zeke, scolding him for striking before the match had even begun. But Zeke, ever composed, merely shrugs off the reprimand. He casually questions why a battle should require permission to start when both fighters are already in the arena. The one who strikes first holds the advantage, after all, so why waste the opportunity? As he speaks, his sharp gaze gleams with an unmistakable killing intent, so potent that even the instructor shudders. Leon, however, quickly reassures the instructor that everything is fair game and insists that the match continue. Stepping back now would be an even greater humiliation. The moment the signal is given, Leon recklessly charges forward, blinded by rage. But his aggression earns him nothing but another punch to the face. At first, Leon flinches, expecting another world-shattering blow. But, he quickly realizes something. The punch didn't hurt. A wave of arrogant confidence surges through him. So that first punch was just a fluke? He sneers inwardly. As long as I keep my guard up, Zeke is no threat at all. He soon notices Zeke lifting his left hand, ready to strike again. Confident in his ability to predict his opponent's next move, Leon ducks at the last second, believing he has outmaneuvered him. He immediately seizes the opening, lunging forward to grab Zeke and force him to the ground. But then, a sudden impact. Leon stumbles, his body trembling as if struck by lightning. His mind reels in confusion. What just happened? Even the instructor, watching from the sidelines, is utterly stunned. He struggles to comprehend how a 12-year-old child just pulled off such a precise and lethal counterattack. A moment ago, it had seemed certain Leon had dodged the counter and moved in for the takedown. The instructor was convinced that victory was already in Leon's grasp. Yet, in the blink of an eye, Zeke had punched him square in the chin, effortlessly breaking free. Leon's mistake? He let his guard down too soon. Zeke, on the other hand, remained as cool as ever, unfazed by his failed counterattack. The precision, the calculation, this was no ordinary child. Even the instructor finds himself questioning whether this is truly the same Zeke Drager he thought he knew. Leon, meanwhile, is in complete shambles. His mind scrambled from the brutal hit. He barely has time to process what happened before another blow crashes into him, sending him staggering backward. Yet, despite his disoriented state, he refuses to back down. Gritting his teeth, he steadies himself and retaliates with a punch of his own. At that critical moment, one of Zeke's class skills activates automatically, heightened sense. This ability drastically enhances his perception, allowing him to see movements at an astonishing 960 frames per second, effectively turning the incoming punch into a slow-motion spectacle. Dodging it becomes effortless. As the punch zips past him, Zeke swiftly grabs Leon's extended arm and slam dunks him into the ground with devastating force. The impact is so brutal that the very floor beneath him shatters upon collision. In that instant, another skill, Precise Stab, activates. This ability allows Zeke to instinctively pinpoint weak spots on his opponent for maximum damage. With Leon completely pinned to the ground, Zeke clenches his fist, preparing to obliterate his face. The bratty bastard begs for mercy, but Zeke doesn't hesitate. His fist connects squarely, sending another shockwave through Leon's body. The sheer brutality of the strike leaves the instructor drenched in sweat, while the surrounding spectators watch in stunned silence. A single, merciless punch, and the arena falls dead quiet. Satisfaction washes over Zeke. After years of enduring torment, this moment, beating the living hell out of his bully, brings an overwhelming sense of calm. He knows that, after this display, his other cousins will think twice before even daring to cross him. But honestly, it doesn't matter. If any of them still have the audacity to challenge him, he'll silence them for good. Yet, it seems one incompetent fool hasn't gotten the message. A cocky, self-absorbed brat steps forward, his expression oozing overconfidence. Jakin Vardek. The arrogant punk chooses Zeke as his Panc Cron opponent, itching to prove himself. He doesn't need words, he plans to let his fists do the talking. Zeke? He couldn't be more amused. Frankly, Jakin alone would be boring, so Zeke offers him an opportunity. Why don't you bring a few others? Let's make this fun. He then specifically calls out another student, Liam Stone, suggesting that he join Jakin. Liam is nothing more than Jakin's lackey, a glorified servant who follows him like a shadow. This suggestion is a blatant slap to Jakin's face. The very thought of needing someone's help to take down Zeke is an insult he refuses to swallow. But Zeke keeps pushing his buttons, taunting him with ease. And sure enough, Jakin takes the bait. His rage boils over. Fuming, Jakin steps into the arena, dragging Liam along. Meanwhile, the instructor explicitly warns Zeke not to move before the match officially begins. Zeke simply smirks. He's actually pleased that Jakin brought Liam along. After all, in his past life, Liam wasn't just another student, he became a legend. Liam Stone, the mercenary king. Back then, he was nothing more than Jakin's servant, a distant relative of the Draker family who had been overlooked by the household. He desperately sought higher education at Academy Valhalla, but was denied, forcing him to enlist in a small nation's Knight Order instead. That nation? Baranon. When Baranon fell, Liam had no choice but to become a mercenary. In those war-torn times, the strong naturally drew followers. With years of experience under his belt, Liam rose through the ranks, eventually forming the Stone Mercenaries, a faction that later unified the three largest mercenary groups. That was the moment the world began calling him the Mercenary King. His legacy grew even greater when the Empire hired the Stone Mercenaries, throwing him into the Continental Wars, the same wars where Zeke, alongside the Northerners, faced him as a formidable enemy. But this time, Zeke would forge a different future. The instructor signals the start of the match. Jakin lunges forward with a thunderous punch, its sheer force disturbing the air currents around them. Zeke doesn't even flinch. With casual ease, he catches the punch mid-air, stopping it as if it were nothing more than a gentle tap. Jakin's eyes widen in shock. Quickly, he shakes off Zeke's grip and retaliates with a powerful kick aimed at his opponent. But the moment his leg connects, agony shoots through his body. Jakin staggers backward, clutching his leg. What just happened? Zeke's strong barrier. A protective force surrounding his elbow, designed to inflict serious damage on any attacker who makes contact. Jakin, unaware of this, had effectively crippled himself with his own attack. As Jakin stares at his injured leg in horror, Zeke lunges forward, his fist glowing with energy as he prepares to end this fight in a single strike. Jakin panics. Desperately, he throws his arms over his face, bracing for impact, but Zeke wasn't aiming for his face. He strikes the injured leg instead. Jakin's scream echoes through the arena. The crowd watches in stunned disbelief. And Zeke? Zeke just smiles. With a vicious follow-up, Zeke lands a brutal punch to the ribs, one that forces Jakin to gag up a mouthful of blood. The once overconfident bastard is now sprawled on the ground, stripped of pride and dignity. Rage contorts his bloodied face as he spits out an order, "Kill him now," directing his servant, Liam, to eliminate Zeke on the spot. And so, the moment arrives, Zeke versus Liam. Liam strides forward, his presence exuding a murderous aura, a silent promise of carnage. The most frustrating part about fighting Liam Stone isn't just his strength, it's his insane reach. If Zeke allows Liam to strike first, he'll be at a serious disadvantage. So, without hesitation, Zeke takes the lead. A flurry of blows. Utilizing his skill, Zeke moves so fast that only silhouettes remain, leaving the illusion of multiple figures unleashing a relentless barrage of punches. The air around them distorts, and to the spectators, it looks like Zeke is everywhere at once. The watching students can only stare in shock and despair. They've never seen anything like this before. After all, in a world dominated by swordsmanship, a brawler's fist-fighting technique is nearly unheard of. But while slash is an impressive technique, it takes an immense toll on Zeke's body. And that isn't even the biggest problem. Liam's monstrous physique is the true challenge. No counterattacks. No dodging. Liam simply takes it all head-on. And that realization alone sends a chill down Zeke's spine. Zeke can only imagine just how savage Liam must have been back in his mercenary days. Realizing that his usual attacks aren't enough, Zeke decides to go all in. He gathers every ounce of strength, preparing to unleash a final, devastating strike, one powerful enough to break through Liam's unyielding defense. But just as the blow is about to connect, Liam dodges it effortlessly. No wasted movement. No reactionary flinch. He didn't even turn his eyes to track the attack. Zeke's rage spikes. That bastard dodged it like it was nothing. Then, Liam makes his move. Seizing the opportunity, he lifts Zeke into the air, ready to slam him down with bone-crushing force. But Zeke isn't about to let that happen without a fight. In a split second, his class skill, heightened sense, kicks in. Time slows to a crawl, granting him just the window he needs. With pinpoint precision, Zeke smashes his fist into Liam's skull. Then, in one swift maneuver, he coils his legs around Liam's neck, locking him into a deadly chokehold. No matter how powerful Liam's body is, he's still just a man. Without oxygen reaching his brain, his strength is meaningless. Zeke tightens his grip. But then, a brutal retaliation. Liam fights back with sheer, merciless force, landing one devastating blow after another. Zeke coughs up blood from the relentless onslaught. His vision blurs. His ribs scream in pain. But even as his body teeters on the brink of collapse, he doesn't let go. Seconds stretch into eternity. Then, Liam's strength begins to wane. His movements slow. His balance falters. His eyes roll back. And then, silence. Liam slumps over, unconscious. The spectators hold their breath, unable to process what they just witnessed. A jaw-dropping battle, one that shouldn't have been possible. But amidst the stunned onlookers, one student isn't scared, he's excited. His eyes gleam with exhilaration. Instead of fear, he's eager. He can't wait to fight Zeke. With the tournament over, Zeke returns to his quarters, where his servant awaits. His butler, ever the dutiful man, inquires about his well-being, having heard that Zeke sustained serious injuries during the matches. Zeke shrugs it off with a casual wave of his hand. I'm fine. But the butler doesn't relent. His sharp gaze narrows. He insists on checking Zeke's pulse, but Zeke knows better. This old fox isn't just worried about injuries, he wants to confirm something. He wants to see if Zeke has awakened his aura. Zeke eventually extends his hand, allowing the butler to proceed. The old man presses his palm against Zeke's, and a faint blue glow pulses between them. Zeke's eyes sharpen. This wasn't normal. Most people, when checking for aura, simply examine the dantian. But this butler? He's far too thorough. And that's when it hits him, this man isn't just an ordinary servant. He's a blue knight. Apparently, not all knights are the same. They are classified based on martial prowess and aura manipulation proficiency. At the lowest level stands the white swordsman, the novice rank. Most children remain at this stage, before undergoing the blessing rite. Upon awakening their aura and opening their dantian, they attain the level of yellow swordsman. All trainees of the cradle become yellow swordsmen after completing their blessing rite. Once an individual learns to freely control aura, they earn the distinguished title of knight. The purple knight is capable of reinforcing their sword with aura, enhancing their attacks significantly. The blue knight, a step above, can manifest an aura blade, an ability that drastically increases combat efficiency. Beyond this lies the realm of those who have transcended their limits, the red knight, a rank once attained by the mercenary King Liam and Zeke himself before his regression. And then, at the peak of power, stands the black knight. These beings are monsters in human form, and only a handful exist across the entire continent. Knowing this, Zeke can't help but wonder, why is someone as skilled as his butler, a man clearly talented enough to command an army, reduced to playing the role of his babysitter? Still, no matter how formidable this old man is, Zeke is certain of one thing, there is no way he can detect his ether. After all, only 2 people in the entire world have the ability to wield it. The butler finishes his examination and steps back, his expression unreadable. Then, with a firm tone, he speaks. Young master, is there something you are hiding? Zeke remains unshaken. Feigning ignorance, he tilts his head slightly, his voice laced with amusement. Oh? Are you suggesting you know something I don't? Silence fills the room. The tension lingers, thick and unspoken. Then, just as suddenly, Zeke breaks the silence, brushing off the conversation with a casual chuckle. Relax, old man. I was just joking. The butler's expression falters, hesitation flickering in his eyes. But the old man can't help himself. He presses on, questioning the drastic change in Zeke's behavior. That is the moment Zeke freezes. Slowly, he turns, his gaze cold and piercing. The question was wrong. Instead of asking why Zeke has changed now, the butler should have been asking, why did it take so long? His voice is calm, but his words cut through the air like a blade. Then, as if to cement his dominance, Zeke smirks. There are far more surprises to come, so you'd best get used to it. The butler bows his head in submission. Understood, young master. I will obey without question. Without missing a beat, the old man then reports that the training room Zeke requested is ready and waiting for him. Satisfied, Zeke dismisses the butler, instructing him to get some well-deserved rest. As Zeke walks alone, a nagging thought creeps into his mind. His butler was ordered to watch him. The question is, who gave that order? He quickly rules out his mother's side of the family. They wouldn't dare interfere with him. That only leaves one possibility, his siblings. Still, there is no need to act rashly. If the butler is a pawn, then Zeke will simply keep him close, manipulating him as necessary until he extracts the information he needs. Upon entering the personal training room, Zeke pauses, momentarily taken aback by the sheer luxury of the facility. This household truly lives up to its name, but he doesn't dwell on it for long. Before beginning his training, he decides to check the system. With a simple command, the system panel materializes before him. And there, something catches his attention. His slash skill has reached proficiency. Zeke has no idea how it happened, but he makes a wild guess. It probably leveled up through repeated use. So, it levels up naturally. From what he gathers, skills activate instinctively, requiring no conscious effort on his part. This means that whenever he learns something new, it will likely be added to the system as a new skill. Still, one question remains unanswered. What is the difference between a skill and a class skill? They both seem to activate automatically, yet there is something different about them. And then, there is the draconian skill. That option remains locked, requiring 10 points to unlock. Out of curiosity, Zeke selects it. A new system window appears. You can earn karma points by killing monsters. His current karma points? 0. Zeke leans back, deep in thought. There are plenty of monsters in dungeons, but he needs to be at least a purple knight to gain access. For now, however, his biggest concern isn't monsters. It's the true nature of his regression. Why did he return to the past? What is the purpose of this system? How does it relate to the ancient relic he discovered? A nagging suspicion lingers in the back of his mind. Everything is connected. And he is determined to find out how. Zeke lacks the full picture, but that doesn't matter, not yet. He doesn't have enough information to connect the dots, but one thing is certain, he will grow stronger. Whether through the system or his Draker lineage, he will use every tool at his disposal. In this world, there exist two dominant forces. The aura of the knights strengthen their aura by battling in dungeons, while mages refine their mana through circles. These two powers stand on opposite ends of the spectrum. If someone awakens one, they can never awaken the other. But Zeke? He awakened neither. He possessed no dantian, no mana circle, nothing. This supposed deficiency led to his abandonment by the Draker household, leaving him to wander aimlessly. It wasn't until his vagabond days that he met his master, the one person who saw value in him. His master taught him many things, but the most invaluable lessons were in the art of healing and the Ether Hall, a unique technique of his master's own creation. Through Ether Hall, Zeke learned to harness a different kind of energy, the power of ether, drawn directly from nature itself. To this day, he and his master remain the only ether users in existence. After just 2 hours of relentless training, Zeke feels as though his body is about to collapse. But just as exhaustion threatens to overtake him, his class skill healing activates in tandem with another class skill, vigor recovery. Healing is a rare ability, one Zeke had never even heard of before meeting his master. If anyone were to witness him using it, they'd brand him as an irregular, an anomaly. That's why he had refused to use it during his battle against Liam. Instead, he rushed back to his room immediately after the fight to heal in secret. As his body restores to full strength, he doesn't hesitate. He continues. He cannot afford to waste a single second. By dawn, Zeke is utterly exhausted. The training hall bears the scars of his relentless practice, deep gashes across the floor, trails marking where his sword carved through the air. A week passes. Inside Cradle's cafeteria, Zeke overhears students talking about him. They whisper, their voices laced with suspicion and fear. He's not the same person anymore. He was a born loser. What changed? He must have dabbled in black magic. Meanwhile, in a private lounge, a gathering of Cradle's so-called elite students takes place. Seated around the table, 1. Reina Tarun, elegantly dining on her steak. 2. Owen Zimmons, calm and composed. 3. Leon, bruised and rowdy, still seething from his loss. Owen speaks first, his tone measured. You should eat properly, Leon. You'll need the energy for the upcoming swordsmanship duel. But Leon is already on edge. For no apparent reason, he slams his fist against the table, sending his juicy steak crashing to the ground. The impact is so strong that even Reina's steak is knocked off her plate. Her sharp glare immediately freezes Leon in place. A deadly silence falls over the room. All 4 of them hate Zeke, yet even among themselves, they do not get along well. The only thing binding them together is their shared resentment toward him. After a long pause, Owen sighs, finally admitting, I won't deny it, Zeke was both brave and impressive during Panc Cron. However, he remains unconvinced about Zeke's abilities in swordsmanship. As far as I know, he doesn't even know how to hold a sword properly. He'll be pathetic. One of them chimes in, smirking. He's so weak that he had to get a customized sword because the standard ones were too heavy for him. Leon, however, remains fixated on one thing, his humiliating loss. It doesn't make sense. How did he lose to that inferior piece of trash? It was pure luck, he growls, convincing himself that Zeke's victory was nothing but a fluke. But Reina doesn't share the same thoughts. With an icy tone, she scoffs. If you actually believe that nonsense, then none of you deserve to be knights of the Draker household. Without another word, she stands and leaves. Before jumping into the duel, here's what sets it apart from Panc Cron. Unlike Panc Cron, where brute force determines the victor, the swordsmanship duel is different. Real swords are used, and because of that, it is the primary cause of most incidents within Cradle. The swordsmanship duel isn't just about skill, it's where the difference between cadets' abilities becomes glaringly obvious. In exactly 1 month, the blessing rite will take place, the moment when the Drakers awaken their aura. But before that, these duels serve as a final test, a glimpse into who will emerge as the strongest in their generation. The instructor calls Zeke's name. With an air of indifference, he casually strides onto the battlefield, a giant claymore resting effortlessly over his shoulder. The sheer size of the weapon is absurd, it's larger than him. The spectators burst into laughter, convinced that Zeke is a fool who thinks that bigger means better. But their amusement doesn't last long. From the opposite side of the arena, Reina Tarun steps forward, her eyes burning with determination. With a dramatic flourish, she throws down the gauntlet, officially challenging Zeke to a duel. Zeke? He accepts, without hesitation. Yet, as she takes a closer look at him, an unsettling realization creeps in. Something isn't right. The Zeke she remembers was weak, pathetic, barely able to hold a sword properly. But the person standing before her now, he's different. His presence is overwhelming, his stance, commanding. And though she snaps out of it, shaking off her momentary hesitation, the fact that she was intimidated, even for a second, disgusts her. Backing down isn't an option now. She issued this challenge, and she intends to see it through. Meanwhile, Zeke himself is also feeling the pressure. His usual tactics won't be enough to secure the victory he wants, because this isn't just any opponent. This is Reina Tarun. The Lightning Knight. In his past life, Reina was a legend. She earned the title, the Lightning Knight, making her mark during the Continental Wars and rising as one of the strongest warriors of the next generation of Drakers. Unlike most, she had awakened her aura years ago, long before the blessing rite. However, she hadn't used it in Cradle, choosing instead to focus on mastering her fundamentals. That's what makes her terrifying. And now, Zeke stands against her. The signal is given. They clash instantly. A single exchange of blows, and Reina steps back before charging at him again. With a single, powerful strike, she sends Zeke sliding backward. The impact alone tells him everything he needs to know. She's even better than he expected. Reina doesn't hesitate. She charges again, swinging her sword at blinding speed, the sheer force lighting up the arena with sparks. Her friends grow restless. They shout from the sidelines, demanding that she end it in one move instead of playing around. But one wiser student cuts through the noise. She's not toying with him. It's the other way around. Zeke is pushing her. From Reina's perspective, she can clearly see Zeke's openings, his vulnerabilities, the gaps in his defense. Yet every time she tries to exploit them, her sword is blocked instantly, as though he's reading her mind. And then, she notices something even more infuriating. After each block, he deliberately leaves another opening, one that she can't resist attacking. Only to have it blocked again. He's not fighting to win. He's teaching her. Realizing this, Reina finally steps back, her breath ragged from the endless exchanges. Zeke? He doesn't even look remotely tired. There's not a single bead of sweat on his face. In fact, he looks bored. She's strong. But to Zeke, she's predictable. She's holding herself back, refusing to use aura, just like he expected from someone obsessed with fundamentals. And so, he decides to break her out of her shell. Suddenly, Zeke takes an extremely low stance. It's unnatural, completely different from before. It screams intent. It looks as though he plans to close the gap in one swift movement. Reina narrows her eyes, confident in her speed. She doesn't see it as a threat. But in the blink of an eye, he's already in front of her. She doesn't even have time to react. A thunderous strike. His sword slams down, so powerful that the very ground beneath them cracks open. Reina barely dodges. She tells herself that as long as she keeps her distance, she can react to his attacks. She was wrong. Zeke swings his massive claymore, but he wasn't aiming for her. Instead, the debris from the force of his strike, the shattered ground beneath them, flies up into the air. A chunk of rubble slams into her face. Her nose is banged up instantly. Her vision blurs for a split second. And in that moment, Zeke charges. With his massive sword in hand, he closes the distance once more. The gleaming edge of his blade comes within centimeters of her neck. And in that instant, Reina is sure she's done for. As shocking as it is, Zeke's sword suddenly goes flying into the air, flipping end over end before landing several feet away. A moment of stunned silence grips the arena, then erupts into cheers for Reina. The crowd immediately declares Zeke the loser, showering Reina with praise for securing victory without even using her aura. However, the instructor sees the truth. His face is frozen in sheer horror, his expression so twisted it's as if he just discovered he has more than one father. Because what the cadets failed to notice, what only the instructor saw, was that at the very last second, as Zeke's attack closed in on Reina, she used aura. It was subtle, barely noticeable. A mere flicker of energy. But it was there. And the fact that Zeke forced her to break her vow, to use her aura before entering the academy, was nothing short of insane. Zeke's counterattack as Reina stands there, her face riddled with doubt and regret, Zeke suddenly charges forward. With his fist balled up, he strikes her square in the throat. The impact is so forceful that she collapses to her knees, blood dripping from her mouth. The onlookers erupt into outrage. This was supposed to be a sword duel. Such a shameless, dirty move. They point their fingers at Zeke, hurling insults, branding him disgraceful for his cheap attack. But Zeke? He doesn't care. Completely unbothered by the noise, he calmly looks down at Reina and asks, "Do you want to continue?" Reina clenches her fists, refusing to accept defeat. She insists that he only landed the hit because she let her guard down. But then, a chilling realization hits her. If he had been holding a knife instead of throwing a barehanded punch, she would already be dead. That alone is enough for her to honorably concede defeat. A victory no one can deny. The arena falls silent. A moment ago, the crowd mocked Zeke, treating him as nothing more than human scum. Now, they witness the impossible. Zeke Drager, the boy ridiculed as a failure, has defeated Reina Tarun, the Lightning Knight, one of the greatest prodigies of their generation. It is unfathomable. To be continued. This is it for today's episode. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. See you in the next episode. Stay tuned.